And just like that, we are back with the Real Estate Show featuring Chris Lofthus of the Chris Lofthus Group. That's at Keller Williams Realty, Boise. Chris, what it seems like the fourth quarter you get really busy.
Yeah, 4 years in a row, the most production we've done is in the fourth quarter. I don't know why. Other areas. I've also worked in the real estate in different states. So you look at that, it's not very typical. I don't know why. There's no rhyme or reason to it, but it's always the biggest quarter.
Yeah, and I mean that seems to me like Thanksgiving. It seems to me like Christmas. All the stuff that goes on, but I guess it's the opposite of that. People start thinking in their mind, now's the time to move or now's the time to buy.
Yeah, a lot of it's third quarter. We put it in escrow third quarter, ends up closing in the fourth quarter, so I think we see that activity. This year, the big thing we're promoting right now is we're only 2,000 houses in Ada County, and people are pulling them off. They always do. They don't want to deal with it during Thanksgiving and Christmas. What a perfect time to list your house. There's people out there looking. There's people buying, and so we're really trying to promote this year. Typically, we will pull them off the market, but with no inventory level and there's still buyers wanting to buy a house, why wouldn't you put it on?
Real quick before we go to our guest, when people when they're looking to move here, they've been transferred, something comes along that line, you've got a great tool, and we promote it, we talk about it, but we know what it is. You know what it is. You created it, the secret list. It's right. Chris Lofthus' secret list. Tell our listeners why you created that, because when you list your house, there's a lot of issues that come up from neighbors, families, and friends.
Right. Yeah. We created it because we had, it's basically what it is. It's pocket listings. It's people we know that want to sell their house. They don't necessarily want to deal with, listing their house. They might have kids. They might have people coming into town. They don't want their family to know. They don't want a sign in the yard. There's so many different reasons, but we have people coming to us all the time, and especially with, instability in people's minds with the market, I think that's, they're like, well, if we get our number, yeah, we'll do it, but we don't want to list it. And that's kind of what we do. And just reach out to us at chrislofthus.com and that will send you what we have. Yeah,
kind of a cool deal. Our next guest, Tim Bundgard, who is the president and CEO of Pioneer Title Company. And Chris, I think Tim was one of our first guests on this program and just kind of the mainstay. Tell me what he's meant to your business, not only Pioneer Title Company, but Tim himself.
Yeah, Tim actually, and we're good friends as well. And Tim, what he brings to our business and what Pioneer Title brings to our business, including like what Mike Ranieri does and the management and all the people over there. I mean, I probably close 90% of my transactions at Pioneer Title that I can control. And the reason we do that is because they're so good and they're so talented. And Tim will say this too, you're only so good as the people around you. And if you look at the people around you and you hire talent and you get good talent and they're highly trained, you're gonna have a great outcome at the end of the transaction, of course.
Absolutely. And Tim, with that, welcome to the program. You said, hey, I don't know if I want to get into the minutia of what a title company does, but I want to remind our listeners, you are an asset to the agent, to the lender, the builder, which ultimately is our listener today. It's so important that you are there.
First of all, I want to thank everybody for having us on the show, and Mike Ranieri coming with me today. And we certainly, we are here to do the title insurance, to do the escrow closings, to pull the transaction together. No question about that. But we want to be more than that to the end buyer, and certainly to all those folks that you just talked about, whether it be a builder, an agent, or a lender. And to that end, it's we watch the market and we have a feel for where it's going, and we want to be able to share that and give the tools that are necessary to the agents in particular, somebody like Chris, so they can bring clarity to the market, because there's been so much misinformation out about the real estate community, certainly over the last 3 or 4 years, and it's a whole new ball game now.
One of the things, Tim, you had said, we always develop these new acronyms or these sayings, the shadow inventory. And I said, I was like, what is shadow? I never heard of that before. And then it becomes, well, you reminded us, you said, hey, the shadow inventory, I don't think there's any here. And now you're on today saying, do you see any shadow inventory? I haven't yet.
Well, and I'll even let Mike speak to that, because it's something that we've been waiting for. And Mike, what are your thoughts on that?
And real quick, let me introduce Mike Ranieri, who's the vice president of Pioneer Title Company. And Mike, what a pleasure to have you today. And we're putting you right to work. So tell us about the shadow inventory and where it is, and if it's not even here.
Well, thank you for having me. Shadow inventory is one of those cult sayings that's out there right now, and whether or not it exists, nobody really knows. And so we've been waiting for this supposed backlog of inventory to hit the market. And I want to say the better part of 2 years has gone by, and it still has yet to manifest itself. So when I look at the market, and when we look at the market with our teams, if it is going to happen, it's going to be somewhat muted. There'll be some, obviously, that hits the market based on people that unfortunately have lost their homes for whatever reason. There's going to be some of that hits the market. But again, it brings about an opportunity for people to step up and look at an opportunity to buy.
Right. And Mike, touch base on this too. And this is kind of what we discussed at the break here. Now, if you were a bank and you had shadow inventory and you're looking at one of the best or one of the best markets right now in real estate, and we have 2,000 inventory, 2,000 houses on the market in Ada County with 400,000 people and all the activity and all the sales volume up, everything going up, why wouldn't you put them on the market? I understand places like Nevada, Florida, where I could see maybe the federal government saying, you know what, B of A,
right,
Chase, Wells Fargo, hold them off. We don't want to. They've already been killed enough. We don't want to hurt them anymore. But in a place like this, they'd be getting top dollar. They'd be getting more money than they were last year for their product. Don't you agree?
I totally agree.
Yeah, and it's just like you said, it's a cult saying. I don't think it's out there. I don't know why they wouldn't put them on if it was even possible.
Tim, you had talked about a piece that, and we'll get into it more next segment, but the PTCindex.com, and I know that's something you're really proud of, and you're able to use that as a measurement. So I'm gonna ask another guy that really knows, along with Chris, is what's your impression of the rise in the real estate activity in the Treasure Valley? I mean, I'm assuming it's good, but I'm asking you. You're the expert.
Sure, and to that end, have we seen a rise in the real estate activity certainly through 2012? No question about it. We track it through the PTC index, and again, just for those that aren't aware of it, it has 9 elements to it. It tracks the health of the real estate market, not just sales, but it talks about the interest rates. It also talks about the amount of distressed property, and just in general, is the index or the health of the market getting better? And we've clearly seen that over the last 11 months. There's no question. 2012 has been a big turnaround year for the real estate market. I think Chris would absolutely echo that. He's seen it in his activity, and so has everyone else in the marketplace.
Is there, I guess I'll ask you, based on inventory, I mean, is there a shortage out there of homes now?
And it's easy to tell. I think when we were all talking before the session started, and we were talking about remembering back when there was almost 6,000 homes in the inventory. At this point, it looks like it'll drop below the 2,000 mark going into November. Do the math, there's a shortage. There's no way of getting around it because we don't have less people. We just have less homes.
Well, and on top of that, you had this. So I keep telling people, I remind them, I said, you know what? These houses are still in the ground. So they didn't go anywhere. They're still there, right? Now you see new construction at 17%, and you watch all this effect. And so now we have more houses, and it's just less inventory. So it's kind of a quagmire. We're sitting in the middle of I hate using the word unstable, but you look at it and you say, wait a second, there's all these buyers. We're showing people properties, and they're like, that's it? We only have 3 properties that meet our criteria? And so, touch a little bit on that, Tim, because if we start dipping down below 2,000, when the market was red hot back in 2004, I think it's 2004 or so, there was 1,374 homes in August of that year. There was the following year, there was 6,000. So you talk about there being 1,300 homes, and we're heading that direction. Where do you feel the market's going to head?
It's very difficult for us to determine, where we think the actual inventory market will bottom out. But we do know the effect of shortages, and we've touched on that a little bit. But what we really have is we see multiple offers all the time on real estate transactions. When you're starting to get that, then you couple that with the rise in the real estate price of homes, the average price, what it's selling for. No question, it's coming up. And in a sense, what we really have here is that we need to get people off the fence. We need to get people to say we got to get back into real estate. And if they're holding their product back, this is a time to get it sold. There's no question about it. To say where the market will bottom out is very difficult. But I would have to think that we are getting close to that now. And we've been at that bottom because it's been pretty. Chris, it's been pretty constant at that 2,000 mark.
Yep, all your 2,300 since we started the show back in, I believe, January or so. But you're exactly right. You talk about that inventory number and how critical it can be because what effect it does have on the overall on the overall market, and the fact that we have a lot of buyers out there that January, February, March, April, May, they were making offers And sellers were putting their foot down and saying, no, we're not lowering our price. And it shows right here. You look at it, from list to close price right now, year to date is less than 1.5%. So, they're listing them for 165 and they're selling them for 165. And so you look at that average number, and it takes a toll on the market.
The upshot of this, Dave, is I really think that we have buyers. There are buyers that are out in the market. A lot of them have been sitting on the side saying, I'm going to wait. The prices, maybe they'll continue to fall. Interest rates continue to fall. So that's always been in my favor. Those days are coming to an end.
Yeah,
I think they already have.
Well, I think when we hear the bankers, and Chris, you and I went to a symposium, they can't get any lower. They said we're where we are. Yeah, absolutely. You're listening to the Real Estate Show featuring Chris Lofthus of the Chris Lofthus Group. What a pleasure to have our friends from Pioneer Title Company, Mike Ranieri, who's the vice president, and Tim Bundgard, who's the president and CEO. Chris, as we go into break, something that you've wanted to hit on before the first of the year, because I think Tim said it real well. There's a lot of misinformation that gets out there. One of the pieces is that 3.8 Medicare sales tax, how that's affecting real estate. And some people think, well, is that coming off mine and what's happening? So, maybe a little discussion between you guys on what it means and what's going to happen.
Well, to reiterate what you said, a lot of misinformation couldn't be used more or overused is what I mean, because there's so much misinformation out there, and people are getting on the internet and they're Googling stuff and they're going on to Zillow and they're looking at it and going, oh, my house is worth $90,000, and they're not even close. The numbers aren't even realistic whatsoever. So, we talk about their decision-making factors, and people are making decisions going into the end of the year. After the new year, the election, everyone's concerned about certain things. But you talk about this 3.8 Medicare tax that was put in on real estate, and we'll just discuss it a little bit in the third segment here, because what it really is the misinformation portion of it, which we'll discuss.
Get that all straightened out. All right, we will continue on. You're listening to the Real Estate Show featuring Chris Lofthus of the Chris Lofthus Group. And I must say, both of these guys have impressive titles, but that they don't forget where they're from. And what I mean by that is reach out to them. It's you can get a hold of Tim via his email. Same for Mike. And again, we encourage you. And Tim, that's been kind of a, and I say that as a novice, when you said, hey, take a look at the ptcindex.com. Went on there and looked at it, and I can see all the work you put into that. But again, that's for your customer. I don't know if customer client's the right word, but you want to add value and make a difference in this crazy world.
Absolutely.
All right, we'll be back after this.